We be live. Hello, everyone. Let me know how my audio is and make sure you like the stream before we get started. Let me know in the live chat. Actually, let me do my own audio check before we get started. Give me a second. Let me see if we are live. I think we are live. Okay, guys, also please make sure you mention in the live chat that you have liked the stream so that I can see that you're actually paying attention, and also that other people can see that you are liking the stream, so that way they are encouraged to like the stream as well. Yeah, there we go. We have audio. Fantastic. All right. Audio good. Everything good. We're all good. We have my audio. Fantastic. All right, guys. I'm going to be real with you guys. First of all, happy 4th of July. And happy polling day in the UK. Good luck with that. I'm going to be honest with you guys in the stream. Let me know, guys, in the live chat that you have liked the stream so I can see, other people can see, and I can see that you're liking the stream. And if you like the stream, more people will end up watching the stream. So please go ahead and do that right now, right at the beginning. Audio is good. Thank you so much for confirming that the audio is good. And also, Alfred is going to be highlighting your comments. Thank you, Alfred, for helping us out. That way you get to be part of the show as well. I am going to, in this stream, be very, very, as much as possible, objective with you. I am going to show you examples. Then I'm going to of some views Muslims in the UK have. But again, I want to make sure that we're being completely based on facts and not making excuses for it, but also not exaggerating it. I'm going to, and you guys could hold me to it. I'm going to show you some examples of what the concerns are. Then we're going to see if this is actually Islamic or not. Is this the teaching of Islam? And then we're going to see if how widespread this is. So it could be Islamic, but maybe Muslims don't take it seriously, even if it's Islamic. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. And I think we have done a very good job on this channel at being objective with our analysis. When we are concerned about something, we're not fear mongering. We're not threatening. We're not trying to make you just because it might be good for the channel. We're not trying to exaggerate things. It's actually based on our analysis and based on the things that we know. And you guys could challenge us on that, on both ways. If you think that we're not, the concern is not enough, tell us. But if you also think that we're fear mongering, also let us know. So let me put up a video of some extreme examples that people often show on social media to show why maybe people in the UK are concerned about what the direction that their country is going. All right. And again, before you say anecdotal evidence, I'm going to back this up with data and also teachings from Islam itself. And also, I want to make sure that YouTube understands that this is a video that we're reviewing. We're against the things that this person is saying and the Muslim is saying in this video. We do not endorse it. We do not. This is completely the opposite of everything this channel stands for. So please do not, YouTube gods, please do not strike us down. We're not in favor of anything in this video, anything that is being said in this video. All right, so let me give you the context of this video before we start playing it. This is a Muslim immigrant living in London. And I'm not even going to read what he said, because I usually read before I play the video, but YouTube might think I'm saying it. So this is a Muslim on the right, and I think the guy on the left might be a Christian. I'm not sure, but let's see what they are saying.
You're a liar. I wouldn't trust you, and I have to hate you as well.
So the point is, you won't have a conversation with me because I'm a Christian.
Okay, so yeah, the person on the left is a Christian. The person on the right is a Muslim. This is in London. I think this looks like it's in Speaker's Corner. And the Christian is asking, so you want to talk to me because I'm a Christian? You want to have a conversation with me because I'm a Christian?
So the point is, you won't have a conversation with me because I'm a Christian.
No, I won't believe anything you say because you're a liar. And you're a Christian as well. I hate you for the sake of Allah.
You hate me for the sake of Allah.
I hate you.
So the Muslim is saying, I hate you for the sake of Allah. Okay, and this is not the first time I've heard this. I mean, this is the first time I'm seeing this video. But I've heard people saying I hate you, like Muslims saying to somebody, like, I don't want to. So I've even heard people saying, I don't really want to hate you because you're a nice person, but I hate you not because I want to hate you. I hate you for the sake of Allah. I've heard that before. It's a very interesting phrase that I've heard multiple times, but listen to this again. I hate you for the sake of
Because
Allah.
you're a liar. And you're a Christian as well. I hate you for the sake of Allah.
You hate me for the sake of
I
Allah.
hate you for the sake of Allah.
All right.
I hate you for the sake of Allah. Every Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah. Any Jew, any Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah.
He hates me for the sake of Allah.
You hate.
Look, the Christian guy could not believe what he's capturing. He's like, look at his face. Look at the face of the Christian. He's like, are you guys hearing what I'm hearing? He's like, are you recording this? Like, please tell me that you're recording this. Look at his face. Like, hey everyone, look at this guy. He hates me for the sake of Allah.
Of Allah. Every Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah. Any Jew, any Christian, I hate you all for the sake of Allah.
He hates me for the sake of Allah.
You hate these bastards and the other bastards.
Would you kill me if you get a chance?
If we're in war, I would chop your head off.
Allah guide you.
If we're fighting in war.
Okay, I thought this Muslim guy, the Muslim guy, is going to say something that is not accurate. He said, would you chop my head off? And I thought he's going to say something that is not endorsed by Islam. He's like, I thought he's going to say, yeah, I will chop your head off. But he's actually quite knowledgeable. This Muslim knows his teachings, because he said, if we were at war, I would chop your head off. So Islam is very, choppy, like it is very violent. However, there's some context to it on how you get to, if you want to chop a Christian, you have to be at war. So he knows how he's supposed to commit violence Islamically. Again, YouTube, we're not endorsing this. We're anti-violence, but he knows even the framework of when he can commit violence on this Christian. So you can see that this is not just an average Muslim that doesn't know his teachings, because if we were at war, so he knows what he's supposed to, is what is allowed Islamically. Look at
Allah.
You hate these bastards.
which kind of shows that I hate you for the sake of Allah is also part of, in line with the correct Islamic teaching.
And the other bastards.
Would you kill me if you get a chance?
If we're in war, I would chop your head off.
Not that I'm excusing it, by the way, like only if you're at war. Like he would go choppy on the Christian if they were at war, because he's a Christian. So I'm not trying to say like, oh, listen, Islam is not that violent. You could only go choppy if you're at war. Yeah, well, you are at war with them because they're not Muslim. But if you're not been in the context of the war, you cannot just. So if you are not at war, if you want to go choppy on non-Muslims, there needs to be like a shura, there needs to be like a qazi, there needs to be like a judge and a committee or whatever. So you can't just randomly go choppy on people in the streets. Okay, it is barbaric. Islam is barbaric, but it's not chaotic barbaric. It is organized. There's a system to it. There's a system. There's an order to this barbarism. Okay, so yeah, he knows. Like, if as an average Muslim who's not it's not executing the command of a court, the only way you could go just choppy on a Christian is if you are a soldier in war against Christians or other non-Muslims. Oh, by the way, thank you so much for the super chat by Singapore Auditor. Well, thank you. I appreciate the support. The sound of the video is a little loud. Guys, let me know how loud, if the audio of the video is okay. I'm saying, people say choppy. I'm saying choppy so that YouTube doesn't think that I am like, because if I say, the K word or the other words, YouTube might think like I am endorsing violence, which I'm not, YouTube.
Would you kill me if you get a chance?
If we're in war, I would chop your head off.
Allah guide you.
If we're fighting in war, am I supposed to let him kill me? I said, if we are.
No, let's ask this again. Do you hate me?
Yes, I hate you for the sake of Allah.
Who taught you to hate me?
Islam did.
He says, who taught you to hate me? He says, Islam did. Well, Armin, why are you playing these tricks on us? Obviously, this is just a random crazy person that doesn't represent Islam, okay, the teaching. But again, I'm not trying to, let's be clear, I'm not trying to act like this is, so again, example, if this is Islamic, how widespread this is, right? And what is the context? Sometimes there are people who act like Islam is peaceful and it doesn't promote violence, but also we have to be careful about the other side. Islam is a very barbaric and violent religion, but it teaches you when to use that violence and in what way. And if you are one of those people who doesn't understand how Islam teaches you to be violent upon other people, you might think it's just random and you could do it in any context at any time. And if you take that position, the other side who wants to lie to you and tell you that Islam is peaceful will use your ignorance to be like, look, you're wrong. Islam is not as barbaric, chaotic as you think it is. Therefore, our position that says Islam is peaceful and democratic and all that nonsense is correct, right? So when you want to show how evil and barbaric Islam is, also understand the context and the framework which allows you as a Muslim to be so, act in such a way so that the people who are trying to defend Islam don't catch you with misinformation to try to promote their lies about Islam, right? So it's important not to just simplify how Islam promotes violence. But again, let me focus on the hate part, on Christians and Jews, because that guy was focusing on Christians. So this is Sahih Bukhari. Again, I hope people who watch this channel understand that this is Sahih Muslim. That any hadith that has Sahih on it, that means it's especially Sahih Muslim and Sahih Bukhari. These are basically saying and doings and teachings of Muhammad that are part of all four as Sunni Islamic school of thought. So basically, it means that it's inseparable from Islam. So it's as Islamic as any Quranic verse that you could find, right? You could fight me on that. Anybody knows that this is true. So this is Sahih Muslim, means that according to Islamic teaching, this is a fundamental part of Islam and accepted as something that Muhammad has said, right? So I will show you two hadiths, and if that's not enough, I will show you a Quranic verse for people who want to be Quranists. So the hadith says, and this is what Muhammad said. You can see Allah's messenger, and here it says Sallallahu Alaihi. That means this is Muhammad, the prophet, said, the last hour meaning the last days, means the end of days. The last hour would not come unless the Muslims will fight against the Jews and the Muslims will kill them. Again, YouTube, not my words, this is Prophet Muhammad. And kill them until the Jews would hide themselves behind a stone or a tree, and a stone or a tree would say, Muslim, oh, the servant of Allah, there is a Jew behind me, come and kill him. But the tree Ghargad would not say, for it is the tree of the Jews. So basically, in the last day, there will be a time that Muslims all over the world will be hunting down Jews, and the Jews will be hiding behind rocks and trees. But there will be a miracle. There will be an Islamic miracle, and the trees and the rocks will speak out. They're like, "Hey, Muslims, there's a Jew hiding behind me," and the Muslims will find them that way. Except one tree, which is a Jewish tree, and this Jew tree, the Jew tree of Ghargad, is not going to give away the Jews. It's not going to speak out. So if you're a Jew, make sure you find yourself a Ghargad tree and find behind the Jew tree so that the Muslims can't find you. Again, YouTube, these are not my I do not endorse any of this. I'm just teaching you people what Islamic hadith is. This is an Islamic hadith. So let's go to the next hadith. So here's another hadith. So he was like, do you hate me? Do you hate me? Yeah. So the hatred of Jews and Christians is a fundamental part of Islamic teaching. You can see this is also Sahih Muslim. You can see the source of the hadith. Allah's Messenger sallallahu alayhi said, do not greet the Jews. This is what Muhammad said, okay? Do not greet the Jews and the Christians before they greet you. And when you meet any of them on the roads, force him to go to the narrowest part of it, right? So there's a lot more examples like this. I just wanted to show you two hadiths. So Muhammad is telling you, when you see a Jew or Christian walking in the streets, make sure you push them to the corner of the road, and also do not greet them until they greet you, because they're inferior to you. Again, there's many of these, but let's go to a Quranic verse for people who do not accept hadith as I mean, they're rare, okay? So don't take people who don't accept hadith as part of Islam seriously. Both the vast majority of both Sunni and Shia Muslims understand that the Islamic teaching, the most of Sharia law actually comes from the hadith, not from the Quran. But anyways, just to be safe, I also have a Quranic verse. This is Surah 5, verse 51 of the Quran. Says, "O you who have believed," basically al-mu'minun. "O you who have believed, do not take the Jews and Christians as allies. They are in fact allies of one another. And whoever is an ally to them among you, then indeed he is one of them." So as a Muslim, if you're befriending Christians or Jews, you're basically one of them. Indeed, Allah guides not their wrongdoing people. Right? So you can see what we learned here from that first video is part of Islam, and that was in London. But I'm going to quickly go over the examples. I have a video from Ali Dava, so I just want you guys to understand the teaching. So I'm trying to use this video as a reference for anybody that wants to have a quick understanding of what the issue is. The main two issues when people think about concerns with Islam was being unfriendly to non-Muslims and promoting violence. And the second one, let me do another Quranic verse, because we want it to be violence as well. So the unfriendliness, the violence, and also then the child abuse and having raping children. Okay, that's part of Islam. So these are the main things that people highlight. And I want to show you UK Muslims, and I showed you just an average UK, like a random UK Muslim. And then the second one, one of the most famous UK Muslims, which is Ali Dava, and what he stands for and what he teaches. Then we will go to stats and see how widespread this is in the UK. But again, I forgot to show you this Quranic verse to show the attitude of violence against non-Muslims. And this is a famous one, and most of you have heard of this verse. But again, I want this video to be a reference video, so I want to make sure it's complete. This is Quran chapter 9, verse 29. And it says, "Fight against those who do not believe in Allah." This is basically covers all non-Muslims, right? Covers all non-Muslims. "Fight against those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day." All right, so Qiyamat, the afterlife, or in the last day. Basically, these are the fundamental of Islamic, the pillars of Islamic faith. Basically, it's telling you who's the people who are not Muslims. Fight those who do not believe in Allah or in the last day, and who do not consider unlawful what Allah and His messengers have made unlawful. Basically, Sharia and Islamic teachings. If you don't believe in that, fight them. And who do not adopt the religion of truth, i.e. Islam. So basically, fight everybody who do not accept Islam from those who were given the scripture. So here's again the context that you have to understand, so that you do not become, again, this is organized chaos, organized barbarism, organized violence. This is not random chaotic barbarism, right? So it does provide you some limitations, and that limitations on violence is what the people who are spreading misinformation about Islam use to try to act like Islam is peaceful, right? So basically, it says from those who were given the scripture, meaning that if you have not been exposed to Islamic scripture, then you're safe. Nobody needs to fight you, right? So that seems kind of nice. Oh, that's great. That's amazing. So if I haven't been introduced to Islam, then Islam teaches you not to fight me because I haven't had the opportunity to become a Muslim. So yeah, that sounds nice when you realize that that doesn't actually make it any better. Anybody who's been exposed to the scripture, if they don't convert to Islam, you should be fighting them. So it's kind of like, imagine an evil dictator that is just killing, being brutal to a whole bunch of people, but then sees like a mother who is being like like they're like people, and there are so many people in line that on that day to be executed, and he's watching them, and he takes pity on a few of them because he feels sympathy. He sees like in line there's a mother being nice to her child, or there's somebody that he has an interesting conversation with him, and like, okay, don't kill this one, I like this guy. And then you use those examples to show that this dictator is not that evil, even though he's killing so many people in that line, for no good reasons, right? So these random limitations on violence or hatred is, again, you have to remember that even with those limitations, what is teaching you that fight the people who have been introduced to the Quran and are still not Muslim, which is insane. Even with that limitation, this is still insane. And here's the next limitation. So unless they give you the jizya, so they don't have to become Muslim. If they're Christian or Jew, they can give you the jizya, and willingly, while they are humbled. So they have to be humiliated. They have to know their place. They have to know that they're beneath the Muslims. They could either become Muslim or they could pay the tax for not being a Muslim, but with humiliation. And and when I say humiliation, because I've read the hadith that teaches you how to take the jizya from Christians and Jews. So here's another limitation on violence, and those limitations on violence, do not let people use these limitations on violence to convince you that the violence is justified, because the violence is still insane even with these limitations, right? So again, see, I am giving you the context, and I'm giving you also the limitation. I'm not trying to make Islam crazier than what it is, and I'm teaching you, I'm trying to not exaggerate. I will give you the context, and I teach you, and I also show you how it's still evil and disgusting and should be fought against and should be seen as a threat, even with those contexts, even with those limitations. Because I see a lot of people who are active against Islam online, and they sometimes exaggerate, and they will lose their credibility fighting against Islam. You have to be honest about the limitations in order to be more effective when it comes to fighting Islam. We did get a super chat, so let me go. I will put this video on. I will play this. So we covered quickly. This is going to be a crash course, boom, 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 on the hatred and the violence and the proper context and the examples. And now we're going to go to the child abuse part. I'm using one of the most famous Muslims in the UK, and then we're going to go to stats. Okay, this is going to be a very good reference video for you to send people in the UK and around the world if they want to see why they should be concerned about Islam. Let me read the super chat. Nilufar saying, I rarely catch live AR. Thank you for all you do and the AR team. Thank you so much. As the whole world is trying to revert back to religion, we need sane voices like yours. Thank you. Well, I hope the whole world is not trying to revert back to religion, but thank you for the super chat and thank you for the support. Somebody saying Islam is coming to Canada. You'll be gone, Arvin. Oh no, that's that. Well, if I'm gone, then the rest of the planet is screwed as well. I don't know why you're acting like you're not on the same boat as me. Anyways, well, it's not going to be. Let's not exaggerate, okay? Again, I was joking, but here, let's listen to this video. So this is Ali Dawah. What's the context of this video? This is Ali Dawah, a Muslim preacher and one of the biggest, the owner of the Ali Dawah YouTube channel, which is one of the largest English Islamic channels in the world, if not the largest. I think if it's not the largest, it's either 2 or 3 or something like that. It's pretty high up there, right? And what he says you have to understand, because he's that famous and he's that well known and he has so many fans and followers, what he says does not represent the view of just a random Muslim. This is the view that a lot of Muslims in the UK and other places endorse, as you can see by the fact that his channel has more than 1 million subscribers and that his videos get so many views and support and likes every time he posts them. So this, when this guy speaks, he's reflecting, again, I'm not saying this is a scientific, accurate way of conducting an opinion poll. I will get to that. But again, when the first video I showed you was just a random Muslim at Speaker's Corner, which seems to be somebody who understands the context. He seemed to understand Islam more than your average Muslim. But this guy is different. This guy is obviously living in the UK, and he represents a much wider, a reflection of a much bigger population of Muslims. So let's see what he says. The context of this video is that he's saying, hold on, this is not there. Yeah, he justifies child abuse, or sexual relationship with minors, with a minor by his prophet, right? So let's see how he wants to come up with the excuse for it. So let's see. And again, this is part of Islam. I will show you that this is part of Islam.
I believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6 and he consummated marriage at 9. I have zero problem with that at all, as long as we understand why that.
So again, consummated the marriage, what does that mean? Means having sex with, right? So Muhammad married Aisha when she was 6 years old, right? And he had sexual relationships. He had sexual relationship earlier. He had intercourse with her. Yeah, actually, sexual relationship with Aisha started before 9, but the consummated the marriage means he had intercourse with her when she reached age 9. Okay, and Ali Dawah was saying he has no problem with that.
I believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6 and he consummated marriage at 9. I have zero problem with that at all.
By the way, this video was posted not as a gotcha. This video was posted with some music in the background, which I had to remove using AI so I don't get a copyright strike. And the music, if you listen to it, the music was so wholesome, and this video was like, look, this is true. Like, this is a video as if like, yes, look, this is the Muslim who's not shying away from what Islam teaches. This was not a got you video of Ali Dawah. This was a video promoting Ali Dawah. So keep that in mind.
I believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6 and he consummated marriage at 9. I have zero problem with that at all, as long as we understand why that happened and we look into why he married her and so many things about his character. I've spoken to non-Muslims in the park and they've asked me this question. Wallahi, after I've broken it down, they said, that makes sense. So if it's from this angle, okay, we understand why he did that. Because in the...
So he's talked to, again, I've heard these guys try to justify this. I can't imagine any angle of, I've heard all of them. Like, I've been arguing this specific point for years. He says that when I talk to non-Muslims, wait, did he say I talk to non-Muslims? But let me see.
I've spoken to non-Muslims in the park and they've asked me this question. Wallahi, after I've broken it down, they said, that makes sense.
After they've broken it down, they said it makes sense. I've heard you speak, Ali Dawah. I heard all of you speak. There's never have you made a point or argued this position from an angle that made me ever think like, oh yeah, that makes sense, having intercourse with a 9-year-old. Okay, that makes sense. In fact, I don't think anybody on this planet ever could come up with any arguments or any angle of looking at this that will be like, okay, now I see why it was okay to have sexual intercourse with a 9-year-old. Well, I'm glad that you clarified it. Like, there is no way you could do that. There is no argument for this. I'm not just saying that. I've heard you guys try to justify this for years now. And yeah, no.
Spoken to non-Muslims in the park and they've asked me this question. Wallahi, after I've broken it down, they said, that makes sense. So if it's from this angle, okay, we understand why.
Wallahi, there's no way. Wallahi, there's no, come tell me. Like, come tell our audience. Ali Dawah, Come, let's debate this specific topic. Come, reach my Twitter DMs are open. Okay, I follow you. So message me. Let's debate this specific topic. And I would be honest with you. If you could tell me how this is justified, I will live on air. I will admit in front of everybody that you're right.
He did that.
How are these people still on social? Like, I have to on this channel, we have to be so careful about what we say. If YouTube even gets the slightest idea that we might be promoting, I don't know, child abuse or violence, we're screwed. How does this guy have the biggest Islamic channel with more than 1 million subscribers having these views, and YouTube is like, okay, sure, here, let's have some tens of thousands of pounds every single month for your YouTube videos?
He did that because in the UK, for example, 100 years ago, in William Blackstone's book, he talks about British common law. Girls were betrothed at the age of 7 in the UK 100 years ago.
Okay, that does not, first of all, that does not mean sexual intercourse. Okay, they were given away at age 7. Okay, and also they had sexual intercourse earlier than what they should have been having back then 100 years ago. So look how he changes it, right? So they weren't having sexual intercourse at 7. They were just given away, and that was a rare thing. Even 100 years ago, 200 years ago, even thousands of years ago, before Islam, people were not having sexual intercourse with 9-year-olds. You know, it wasn't widespread. It wasn't a thing that is like common or accepted norm, right? It was too early. Like, for example, it was 12, 14, 13. This is what was common, right? It was too early. So there's two problems with this. There weren't his arguments. This was not normal in Europe, having sex with 9-year-olds. 1, 2, these were, whatever they were doing was wrong. Okay, they were having sexual intercourse back then in Europe 100 years ago with 14-year-olds, with 13-year-olds, with 12-year-olds. Okay, so it's not like we're saying that's okay. And even if they were having sexual intercourse with 9-year-olds, which they weren't, yeah, we will condemn that. Easy peasy. Like, what is it? What is your point? Your prophet did not do something wrong because other people were doing it as well. Okay, show me any single person. Do you think we have a problem condemning other people who have sexual intercourse with 9-year-olds? Anybody else like, it's okay that my prophet did it because other people did it? Wow, amazing argument. Amazing argument. Yes, every single one of them, we condemn it. They were wrong. Easy. What the hell? How is that even an argument? I mean, it's actually worse for you because your prophet is supposed to be a role model for all men at all times, to the end of time. Oh, by the way, I forgot to mention something about the Quranic verse that I showed you. Oh, no, it's okay. These other people who are having intercourse with minors throughout history, they're not a role model. So yeah, it's easy to condemn them, but they're not even an issue because nobody is using them as a role model, you idiot.
Forget 1400 years ago, 100 years ago. What we're saying is this: no one ever uses.
But you see how he shifts the standards. But 7-year-old betrothed, not intercourse.
Argument against the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, ever. This was something that was brought new in the 1900s by Orientalists, where they came and brought this new phenomenon of, oh my gosh, your Prophet married, da, da, da. So we're saying that we don't study our religion and we don't come to finding out the reasons. Then we find it problematic because we're like, I can't answer this. The only choice I have is this: either I'm going to reject the hadith and say it's weak or I don't accept it, or say, you know what, actually the hadith is authentic. Here is the reason why he did it.
So he's saying it was the Orientalists that brought the standards of, oh my God, the unrealistic standards of not having intercourse with 9-year-olds were introduced by these Oriental. Well, thank you, whoever brought these standards to humanity. Hold on, look at this part. let's go from the beginning again, because I want to make sure I destroy this argument line by line.
I believe the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, married Aisha at 6 and he consummated marriage at 9. I have zero problem with that at all, as long as we understand why that happened and we look into why he married her and so many things about his character. I've spoken to non-Muslims in the park and they've asked me this question. Wallahi, after I've broken it down, they said, that makes sense. So if it's from this angle, okay, we understand why he did that. Because in the UK, for example,
he did that, Muhammad did that because in the UK,
100 years ago,
for example, 100 years ago, okay, Muhammad just RAPE'd a child because 100 years ago in the UK. Sure, that's an amazing, that I didn't know. I knew that time was not linear, and that's a human-centric perspective, that time is linear, but I didn't know that the human mind could actually take advantage of that. I didn't know Muhammad, 1400 years ago, abused the child because 100 years ago in Europe, people were doing what?
100 years ago, in William Blackstone's book, he talks about British common law. Girls were betrothed at the age of 7 in the betrothed, guys. When I'm looking at the translation, means the person. I mean, the definition of betrothed is the person becoming engaged with somebody else. So yeah, I don't think that's, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think that means they were having sexual intercourse again. But if they were, well, screw them, screw every single one of them. Again, not the same thing, Ali Dava, not the same thing. But even in the bizarre world, if they were doing that, okay, how is that? Have you heard two wrongs doesn't make it right? They were as bad as your prophet. They were as bad as your prophet, but at least nobody's trying to follow them. The UK 100 years ago. Forget 1400 years ago, 100 years ago. What we're saying is this: no one ever uses argument.
Yeah, betrothed is not marriage. It's not even marriage. So Muhammad married Aisha at 6, and then consummated or had intercourse with her at age 9. But he's talking about something that is even not even marriage. It's just like, okay, this child, basically it means like this, like, okay, this 7-year-old, this is with you when she's old. You guys, it's kind of like arranged marriage. Isn't it kind of like arranged marriage, right?
Argument against the prophet.
Yeah, it means promise to. People are saying it means promise to in the live chat. Exactly.
Muhammad, peace be upon him, ever. This was something that was brought new in the 1900s by Orientalists, where they came and brought this.
Wow, the evil Orientalists coming out and bringing this unreasonable new standards. Like, oh, you guys wouldn't have had a problem with this. Like, you guys, like we Muslims are saying, we understand that there's no problem having intercourse with the 9-year-old. Again, YouTube, not my views. I'm making fun of this guy. But you guys are all brainwashed. Guys, we are the problem. You, me, we are the problem. We have been brainwashed by this new bizarre standard that these Orientalists have brought upon this world, that we're like, okay, there's something wrong with like doing this. We should, like, yeah, we shouldn't. Okay. By the way, somebody might think like, Armin, you have no arguments. He's right. This is completely okay to do this. You just been so deeply brainwashed that you cannot step out of your brainwashing. Like your Western-minded perspective sees this as wrong, but you are so heavily being brainwashed that you cannot see why Ali Dawah is wrong, and you could just laugh at it. Well, I mean, no, I'm not gonna spend this stream. I can't do that again because we have done this before, but we could show you scientifically why. Scientifically, this is not just a disgust factor. This is not like just like ew, intercourse with 9-year-old. Like, this is not just a disgust factor. We could show you scientifically, based on the harm principle, why it's evil and wrong to have intercourse with a 9-year-old. You don't have to just be like gross and disgusting. It's based on scientific, we use the principle of harm reduction and scientific, findings, both from child psychologists and, physicians and bodily, everything that we know from modern medicine and modern psychology. We could use, there's ample of evidence to show why this is harmful to the both mind and the body of a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, an 11-year-old, a 12-year-old. Once we get close to 18, now whether it should be 18 or 19 or 17, that's a gray area. But humanity, the human society, using scientific findings, they have come up to a kind of an area where they understand this is kind of maybe a safe zone to be after this, right? So this is not just a random number like that people just threw a dart at them, like, hey, let's make it around this number. No, this is based on knowledge, this is based on evidence, and this is based on scientific finding. This is not us being brainwashed into like, oh, just like, oh yeah, it shouldn't be 9. Like, oh yeah, like we just they try to act like we're being religious. We just accepted that 9 is wrong because society has told us without actually going and checking why this is wrong. It's nonsense. We actually, most of us, many of us, I don't know most of us, many of us went and checked why this is wrong. We didn't just accept it from society.
New phenomenon of, oh my gosh, your prophet married, da, da, da. So we're saying that we don't study our religion and we don't come to finding out the reasons. Then we find it problematic because we're like, I can't answer this. The only choice I have is this. Either I'm going to reject the hadith and say it's weak, or I don't accept it, or say, you know what, actually the hadith is authentic.
Yeah. So the hadith is not, so we have hadith, that the different gradings of hadith. Hadith, if a hadith is da'if, it means it's weak, that you could doubt its authenticity, that it's not this teaching of Muhammad. But this hadith that Muhammad had intercourse with a 9-year-old, it's sahih, means that it's inseparable from Islam. That means no Muslim, both Shia and Sunni, because this is also in Shia hadith as well. No Muslim can deny that their prophet had RAPE'd a 9-year-old. Anybody who says otherwise is fooling you, okay? Because they try to come up with ways. I will show you the hadith right away, okay? But let me finish this part.
Here is the reason why he did it.
Okay, so here. Ali Dava, I know you're a coward and you will not debate me on this, but if you want to debate me, I'm here. You know how to find me. I already sent you an offer for a debate, and you... No, this is not the one that I want to show you. This is the one I want to show you. Okay, so yeah. So for anybody who thinks this is not part of Islam, again, this is Sahih Bukhari. Remember, there's 2 sources of hadith that is the most authoritative, authentic part of Islamic teaching. This is Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim. Okay, and so this is Sahih Bukhari, and this is what Ali Dawah is saying. He's saying it was Sahih, so we cannot deny it. If you're a Muslim, you have to accept this as part of Islamic teaching. The Prophet Muhammad, so the Prophet, this is again this squiggly stuff here, says sallallahu alayhi or sallallahu alayhi wasallam, which means peace be upon him, and all that nonsense. It says the Prophet married her, meaning Aisha, when she was 6 years old, and he consummated his marriage when she was 9 years old. This is part of Sahih Bukhari. This is part of Islam. There's no way that you could deny this, that Islam teaches you that Muhammad did this. Okay. Hisham said, I have been informed that Aisha remained with the Prophet for 9 years. So basically until Muhammad died. So Muhammad died when Aisha was 18 years old. Right? So again, some people try to come up with some bizarre arguments that Aisha was not 9, while they have multiple hadiths. This is not just one hadith. They have multiple Sahih hadiths that specifically mentions her age when Muhammad RAPE'd her. Right, so now that we have the teachings of Islam and the examples of Muslims in the UK, let's go and take a look at how big of a problem this is, right? And again, here, just like with the teaching, right? Just like with the teaching that I mentioned, that you're not supposed to exaggerate, because if you exaggerate, then people will, if they catch you exaggerating, they're not going to take that. You will lose your credibility, and you're not going to be as effective in showing how big of a threat Islam is, right? So, for example, I've seen some people who want to fight Islam act like every single Muslim is a threat, right? And that obviously is going to cost you, because every single Muslim is not a threat. Islam is a threat. And if you claim that every single Muslim is a threat, then you are not going to be as effective as a soldier against Islam as you should be, right? Another claim, and many people who are fighting Islam make, is that the vast majority of Muslims, for example, in the UK, believe this. And imagine, here's the thing. If if 10% of the population believes such horrible have such horrible values, that is already a huge concern for society. 10%. Imagine 10% of society thinks like this. That's horrible. That is a society that is not going to be able to prosper as effectively as it should, right? So, and I'll show you this, what the survey results shows about the Muslims in the UK and how that's a huge problem. But if you act like 90% or 100% of them think like that, then the 40% number, which I'm going to show you, which is a very, very high number, is not going to concern you as much. Actually, before I show you the numbers, let me show you a video from Norway to see how widespread the situation is with regards to, I know this is supposed to be the UK, and when I go back to the stats, I will show you stats from the UK. But let's do some Muslims in Norway and to see how big of a problem it is and why you see 100%, almost 100% participation, agreement with Sharia law here in Norway. But when I show you a poll of Muslims in the UK, you get a 40%. It says 40% of British Muslims want Sharia law. And again, this is not a very accurate framing of what the question was, but let's compare that poll number to how people respond to this question over here, and you get close. Look, it's a big crowd, so your sample size is pretty good. I would say the question was asked in a way that encourages participation. So again, not a scientific way of collecting data, but again, I will give you my arguments for why you see close to 100% support for Sharia here, but in this poll that was asked about the Muslims in the UK, you get 40%, and how 40% is a dangerously high number. But let's look at this video first. Let's see what this guy is saying.
Can we have...
Wait, somebody's saying, oh, Armin, the problem with your point is if you accept one Muslim at the end, you then should accept all the Muslims to be consistent. What are you talking about? What is this all or none? Accept one Muslim. This is not about one Muslim or two Muslims. This is about Islam. Islam is the threat. Muslims are the carriers. And some Muslims carry it completely, and some Muslims carry it less completely. The threat is Islam itself. In fact, if you want to fight Islamic threat, you have to accept Muslims in a way that you could talk to them, because to fight Islam, you actually need to have a conversation with Muslims, not as immigrants, by the way. Like, if I am completely in favor of completely shutting down immigration from Islamic countries, but again, even if you have zero immigration from Islamic countries, you have Muslims that are now citizens of European countries, and there is no law that will support you getting rid of them. I mean, you could wish for it, you could hope for it, you could dream about it, but citizens of European country who are Muslims, they are here to stay. So you are going to have to find other ways other than deporting them, because again, you might want to, like, everybody, like here. Let me see. Somebody was asking. Let me answer this question. Why not the British government? Somebody is asking in the live chat. Again, not my grammar, his or her grammar. Why not the British government deport Ali Dawah? Ali Dawah is a citizen of the UK. Do you understand how laws work? Do you understand the rule of law that these countries are founded upon? There is no, you might say like, well, they should deport him anyway. Well, it's not going to happen. There's this real world that we live in, and there's this imaginary fantasy world that you might want to live in, that you hope that we could want to live in. There is no way that you could change the laws of the UK to a point where if somebody is a citizen of the UK because of these values that they have, right, because of just being a Muslim, they will get, their citizenship would be removed and they would be kicked out. That is not going to happen. Maybe if they are participating in a terrorist activity or they're part of a terrorist group, maybe then that might be possible, as it was with Shamima Begum, yeah, right? But nothing else, nothing even remotely close to what you guys are hoping for. So again, if you want to find actual effective ways to fight Islam, just subscribe to this channel, because that's not going to work. That's not going to work. That's not going to happen. Anyways, let's watch this video.
Can we have the camera? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience, sir? Can we have this camera focusing on all the audience? Because every now and then, every time we have a conference, every time we invite a speaker, they always can come with the same accusations. This speaker supports death penalty for homosexuals. This speaker supports death penalty for this crime or that. He is homophobic. They subjugate women, etc., etc., etc. It's the same old stuff coming all the time. And we always try to tell them, I always try to tell them that, look, it's not that speaker that we're inviting who has these extreme radical views, as you say. These are general views that every Muslim actually has. Every Muslim believes in these things. Just because they're not telling you about it, or just because they're not out there in the media, doesn't mean they don't believe in them. So I will ask you, everyone in the room, how many of you are normal Muslims? You're not extremists, you're not radical, just normal Sunni Muslims. Please raise your hands. Everybody, mashallah, subhanallah. Okay, take down your hands.
Mashallah, mashallah, subhanallah. So these are average Muslims.
How many of you agree that men and women should sit separate? Please raise your hands. Everyone agree. Everyone agree. Brothers and sisters. Subhanallah. So it's not just these radical sheikhs then. Allahu Akbar. Next question. How many of you agree that the punishments described in the Quran and the Sunnah, whether it is death, whether it is stoning for adultery, whatever it is, if it is from Allah and His Messenger, that is the best punishment ever possible for humankind, and that is what we should apply in the world. Who agrees with that? Allahu Akbar. Are you all radical extremists? Subhanallah. So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajids, no way, or is it
Masajid means mosques.
are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that?
So let's go back here. So like you go to different mosques, you go to different masajids.
So all of you are saying that you are common Muslims, you all go to the different masajids, no way, or is it, are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you're like this extreme Islam net sect or anything like that.
Oh, you're supporting death penalty and chopping of hands of people who are and crucifying people who are against Islam, and basically flogging whoever is having sex out of marriage. But are you an extremist? No. I mean, you did actually correct. This is not extremism in Islam. Supporting segregation between men and women, supporting torturing and the death penalty and the amputations of hands and feet in Islam. This is not Islamic extremism. This is Islamic fundamentalism. These are the fundamentals of Islam. This is within Islam. This is the norm. This is the norm of Islam. This is not as Islamic extremism. In fact, if you are a liberal Muslim, then you are an extremist because you're extremely away from Islam. This is not Islamic extremism. This is the norm of Islam.
Or is it, are you like a specific sect, like the Islam net sect or anything like that? Are you like that? No. Are you like that? Please raise your hand if you like this extreme Islam, that sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosques? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
So what's the politicians gonna say now? What's the media gonna say now?
Oh, what's the media gonna say now? That we're fucked. Oh, what's the media gonna say? Is the media gonna call you radicals? No, the media is gonna be like, okay, we're screwed. We fucked ourselves.
Islam, that sect or anything like that. No one. Allahu Akbar. How many of you just go to these normal masajids in Norway, the normal Sunni mosques? Please raise your hands. Allahu Akbar.
Allahu Akbar.
So what's the politicians gonna say now? What's the media gonna say now? That
they have to say, we're sorry that we fucked you so badly. That's what they should say. Like, what is the politician? The politicians should say, we're sorry, dear citizens of Europe. We betrayed you. We betrayed your trust. We did not protect the values of this country. We did not protect the borders. We have been invaded, and we let the barbarians in. We were not guarding the gates of the standards and the values that made us this great. We apologize. We failed at protecting you. That's what the politicians should be saying. What the media should be saying, they should be saying, sorry, we lied to you. We misrepresented the truth. We made excuses for a barbaric ideology, for a backwardness. We allowed it in. We allowed the spread of a virus that has now infected us, and we weren't honest with you. We made excuses for it, and we're part of the problem. That's what the media should be saying.
All extremists, we're all radicals. We need to deport all of us from this country. Subhanallah. Allahu Akbar. Takbir. Takbir.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Yeah, so by the way, guys, takbir. So when he says Allahu Akbar, that sounds like he's saying Allah is greater, but that's just an statement of presence, of showing power, showing authority. Subhanallah and mashallah, these are just like positive statements of trying to act like something positive that has happened. Mashallah is kind of saying like well done. Subhanallah, you say that when something nice or something amazing has happened. And takbir is when you demand, you ask the crowd to say Allahu Akbar. That's when you say takbir, right? So let's know these words. But here's the thing. This is the poll I wanted to show you guys. So 40% of British Muslims want Sharia law. There was a new, actually, I'm not showing it on the screen. I am showing it on the screen. Never mind. British Muslims in the Sunday Telegraph, the finding in the poll got the most coverage was a question that suggested 40% of Muslims supported there being areas in Britain which are predominantly Muslim and in which Sharia law is introduced. They support it. Okay, so here's why this question is so misleading. Okay, so 40%. Let's cut this in 3 different levels. Okay, do you agree with Sharia? Do you want Sharia in the UK? Okay, and do you agree with the specific teachings in Sharia if I spell them out to you, right? And then the 4th thing you have to consider is the people who say no to that, how backward their belief is, right? So the question that is being asked here is not if you support Sharia, because there are very few Muslims who would say no to that. It's very important that you recognize the difference. There are very few Muslims that will say like, hey, do you support Sharia or not? What does it mean to not support Sharia? Sharia means the Islamic rule, means what God has mandated as the rule for in your personal life and in your political life. That is what God has mandated. That is the teachings of Allah. So if you're a Muslim, it's very unlikely for you to be like, yeah, I'm anti-Sharia. I mean, that's a rare kind of Muslim that who come and say that. This 40% is not Muslims who support Sharia law. This is 40% who are going as far as saying that we want Sharia law in the UK. So it's one question to say, like, do you like Sharia? Then another question to say, I want Sharia law in the UK, because many Muslims could be like, yeah, Sharia is the best version of best version of law and how to run a society. However, when we live in a place, in a country that is not Islamic, then we are supposed to abide their laws. But obviously, the best laws would be Sharia law. So it's insane. So that position is still horrible. So imagine being like, okay, I'm here in this place. This is not Islamic country. Their laws is different, whatever. I'm going to follow that. But the best, if you still believe that the best laws are Sharia, what does Sharia teach? Sharia teaches you, Sharia has no respect for free speech. Sharia tells you to kill the people who are speaking or advocating against Islam. The killing of apostates. The physical torture of people who have sex outside of marriage. Having sexual intercourse with 9-year-olds. I mean, the list goes on and on. Sharia teaches you is anti-bodily autonomy, anti-LGBT, anti-so many things, anti-free speech, anti-democracy, anti-peace, anti-separation of powers, anti-basically every single value that has made countries like the UK great. Islam against that. There's not a single principle or value that has made countries like UK great countries that Islam endorses. There's not a single one. So you have a big part of the population that thinks that is the best. I mean, to be fair, many Muslims actually don't think very deeply about these things. Okay, most Muslims are nominal or minimalist Muslims. They just go through their life, living their lives, and they don't think about these things that much. Okay. However, the fact that you have 40% of Muslims who think that enforcing Sharia in the UK is a good idea. Imagine the percentage that thinks that Sharia as a whole is just a good idea. And 40% is an insanely high number. There is no other groups of the population that has this high of a percentage of supporting not just the values of such a barbaric, insane, violent, anti-free speech, anti-democracy, anti-peace, all the humanist values that we support here. There's no other groups of people that has this much of a support for enforcing those values in the UK. Like, name me another. So 40% of the population wanting not to just to support these values, these backward barbaric values, but also wanting to enforce it. That is a completely different level. So let's say if 40% wants Sharia being somewhat enforced somewhere in the UK to some extent, what would be the number of Muslims in the UK who say that they will support Sharia in general, like not maybe enforced in the UK? I would say it would be above 90%, maybe even above 95%, right? Because supporting Sharia law just means supporting Islam. But the 40% number, just focusing on that, means that what do you think the other 60% believe? The other 60%, if you are going as far as like, I'm not only a supporter, I want this law to be here in this land. So we have the laws that we're enforcing, the laws that Sharia supports, is the most insane laws. Like, we don't get more barbaric and more insane and more backwards than Sharia. Like, if you want to give people examples of laws that people might support, that supports authoritarianism, dictatorship, brutality, violence, child abuse, a complete list of everything that is evil and barbaric, The best example is Sharia. So these are the worst right now in the modern age, the set of the worst values and the worst standards that humanity can offer. And then at the other end, we have the values that the best values, the best standards that humanity can offer that will encourage prosperity and the growth of and progress in other society, which we argue here on this channel that they are secular liberalism, right? Secularism, liberalism, democracy, separation of powers, freedom of expression, a whole bunch of other list of enlightenment values that we have listed in our previous videos. These are the best. So if you have a population that 40% of them wants to enforce Sharia laws, which is the worst that humanity has to offer, and more than, I would argue 90%. This is why you see a difference between all of those kids over there in the raising their hand. It was close to 100%. And the difference between that and this 40% number, because this 40% number is asking you if you want that to be enforced right now in the UK, but that one close to 100% number was just asking if you support Sharia just in general as God's commands, right? So let's forget the 90% number and focus on the 40% number, right? 40% number. If you have a certain population that 40% of them goes as far as wanting to enforce Sharia law, do you think that 60%, the remaining 60%, wants what? Wants liberalism? Wants secularism? Because this 40% is as bad as it could get. This 40% likes Sharia and wants it in the UK. So I would argue the problem is that 60 remaining percent, it's not going to be the completely other end of values that actually make society prosper. That 60%, a huge chunk of it, is also on the side of values that are still problematic. That are still, they don't believe in the equality of men and women. They don't believe in the rights for LGBT. They don't believe in freedom of speech. I mean, if you even look into this very poll here, you can see the full figures reveal some interesting bits and pieces that weren't reported in the Sunday Telegraph. British Muslims surveyed by ICM were almost unanimous, 97%, in thinking that the publication of the Danish cartoons of the Prophet Muhammad was wrong. 77% said they personally were very offended by the cartoons. 9% said they were a little offended, and 11% said they were not offended. But 97% were saying that the publication of the cartoons were wrong, right? So if 40% goes as far as not just supporting Sharia, but wanting Sharia for the UK, then you would expect to see something like 97% not understanding how freedom of speech and freedom of expression works. These are not the values that, if it spreads in a country, is going to make the country become prosperous. These are problematic values that these people have. And here's another poll that we got actually quite recently. This is from April 7, 2024. 46% of okay, so let me actually, okay, that's fine. 46% of UK Muslims support Hamas. Only 1 in 4 believe terrorists committed atrocities in October 7th. Okay, it's amazing how I saw some media reporting this 46% as a win, because it's not the majority. Imagine 46%. Do you understand how insanely high of a number that is? 46%. There is not a single other demographic group in the UK that you would even get close to 10% support for terrorism. 46% is insanely high. So again, if 46% go as far as supporting Hamas, do you think like the 54% they don't have problematic views? That is the most extreme end. Of course, the rest of the 54% are going to have extremely problematic views that are just a little bit below supporting terrorism. They're not going to be like, okay, we don't support Hamas, and we support liberalism, secularism, democracy, separations of power, absolute freedom of speech. It's not going to be like, oh, okay, if you're not part of this 46%, you're going to go all the way to the values that makes this country great. This 46% of Muslims who support Hamas, that means there's a vast majority of Muslims that have problematic views, and these people are now citizens, and they're going to vote, and they're going to change the direction of how your country operates. Even if this is 10% of people, like, okay, Armin, you're exaggerating, because that's just 10% of the society. That's just 10% of UK, or whatever number Muslims are going to be at. But again, these people don't understand. Look, follow the elections in the UK right now. Follow how politics work. Understand how coalitions work. Understand how that if you want certain law to pass or not pass, sometimes you need 1% support makes a difference. Sometimes your government, if it doesn't have the absolute majority, is going to need the support of a party that is like, I don't know, has 5% or 3% support, but they just need that to just make they need to scratch your back, so that at another point they will scratch your back. You need their support. So having 10% of the population having this much backwards values is going to change the direction of your politics. So again, if you don't understand what I'm saying, imagine if you have your main political party, for example, somewhere in the UK, at some point, like, I don't know, 48% support, okay? And for the laws that they want to pass, they don't have enough votes, enough support, enough political capital to be able to get it passed. If you have other parties, for example, in the future, if you have Islamically backed parties that have 5% support, 7% support, 8% support, that 8% support might be so important to your main parties that they will have to appease or support these parties what they want. Like, let's say they want laws that is going to be illiberal, laws that are going to challenge your secularism, laws that is going to challenge your free speech. Your main parties are they would be more interested in supporting these smaller parties, because they're going to need these smaller parties at some point to help them pass laws that they are trying to get passed. So that's why how this 10%, the 10% of the population, having 46% of them not supporting something that is somewhat questionable, supporting Hamas after October 7th, a terrorist group that murdered children and RAP'd women and recorded it and bragged about it, and they're supporting that. That is insane. That is going to change the way your country operates. That is going to change the structure, the values, the principles that turned you into a great country. This is a threat. This is an invasion. And again, I'm talking about Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims, because they're just the carriers. This is an invasion of the virus that is Islam. Again, the Muslims are just a carrier of the virus. You have to be fighting the virus. Let me actually address your concerns and questions, and then go get ready for my Persian show. By the way, guys, 860 people are watching, 482 on YouTube, 377 on Twitter, and 1 person on Twitch. And the people who are watching us on Twitter or X, please make sure that you come to Atheist Republic on YouTube and subscribe to us there. And people who are watching this on YouTube, please make sure that you like the stream, because I am providing you, guys, sometimes it's hard to follow what I'm saying for some people, because what I am doing is I am giving you the proper context. I'm not saying like, oh, it's going to be Sharia takeover of the UK. Wow, like there's going to be 90% Muslims in the UK and they're going to take over. Okay, and I'm not going to exaggerate the teachings of the Hadith and the teachings of the Quran. It's problematic the way it is, with its limitations, on its barbarism. It's all problematic and a threat to society, right? And I'm not going to say like 10% Muslims in the UK is going to turn to 50%. It's not going to, UK is not going to be 15% Muslim. I'm going to show you how that 10%, and I'm not going to fearmonger you about every single Muslim, telling you that every single Muslim is a threat. Without telling you that every single Muslim is a threat, without teaching you to be unfriendly or hostile to Muslims, without exaggerating that Islam UK is going to be majority Muslim one day, without exaggerating, not teaching you about the limitations of barbarism and violence of the Quran and Hadith. I will teach you what they're standing for, what is limitation. With all of that context, I'll give you the arguments for why that is still a threat to your way of life, to why you should actually fight back. 46% of the population thinking that Hamas should be supported. 40% not just supporting Sharia. Again, that title of that article was wrong. They don't support Sharia. They support Sharia for the UK. No other population gets to close to even 10% of some supporting something barbaric like that. And close to the vast majority of them supporting Sharia in general, just thinking those are the right values. Right? That is, and allowing that virus to continue to spread in your country, with even if they're 10% of the population, that is an active. Okay, it's not just that they are 10% and they vote, but these are a 10% of the population that are on average more active politically than your average UK citizen. Do you understand that political capital increases if you turn from just your average voter to a political activist? You are going to, as a citizen of a country, your influence on the direction of the politics of your country and the laws and the rights and the freedoms that you have is going to be 1,000 times more than your average citizen if you're politically active. So let's say 100 times more. If you're 10% of the population, let's say five times more. Do you understand? Let's say you're an average citizen of the UK that is not politically active, but you have 10% that is political active. That 10% could act in a way that as if it's 50% of the population, if it's more politically active, if they show up in rallies, if they go door to door and knock on people and try to get them to vote a certain way, if they have like YouTube channels, podcasts, if they're going out and meeting with politicians, pressuring them, if they're donating to politicians and making sure they have certain requests for them, if they're trying to start their own political parties, if they're running for office, trying to get to, this city council or get that mayor office or that, MP, that, if they are doing all this political activity, a 10% of the population could have as much of an influence politically as 50% of the population. And they are more politically active because they're motivated, because they're on the side of God, they're on the side of good, and everything else supports a lesser way of life. It represents darkness. It represents jahiliyat, or it represents ignorance. They think that they're fighting not just for this world, but the next world. They're fighting, this is the battle of good versus evil, and they think that they're on the side of good. So there's a lot of motivation in trying to do all of this. Also, there's also acceptance by the community. Also trying to make a country that was the center of the Western world. If you give it an Islamic paint, do you know how proud they will become? This is their wildest dreams coming true. They've never imagined ever becoming like this, seeing people praying the azan, hearing the azan in London, number of people praying in London, Muslims areas of London becoming completely Islamized. This is unimaginable. Like, imagine the British Empire, the center of British Empire, which is London, what it has been reduced to. This is a source of pride for them. This is such a source of honor. Muslims all around the world will see this, and they will show it to them. And this is victory. This is a slow invasion. Like, imagine the British Empire used to be able to control like all these Islamic lands. It used to be part of the British Empire, part of the under British control. And now, slowly, using the systems that exist within the country's own way of, doing their own laws based on their own system and their own institutions and laws, they managed to come in and sneak through the back door with a Trojan horse. And now London looks different. And they're showing that, they're bragging about this. It used to be that Islamic countries were trying to brag about being advanced by copying the UK way by copying London, but now you see London itself has the appearance of becoming more Islamized, showing that to the Islamic world is a huge motivation. So let me actually really quickly read. I don't know what this is. Somebody saying UK is now more Islamic than ever, and no chance this can be reversed. You know what happened to Persia, right? It is happening as the religion of Islam enter every home. Yeah, okay, so here's the thing. Persia, but it's not Persia, it's Iran. It's called Iran. Iran, it's not Persia, okay? So Iran fell because you're right, that should be to Iran fell to Islam. However, Islam did have an advantage when it managed to, when the 1979 Islamic Revolution happened. It had a population that, even though they weren't practicing Islam regularly, they were nominally Muslim. So it had that in its advantage. So Islam is a major threat to the UK. But UK is not going to fall in the same way Iran fell in the 1979 Islamic Revolution, because UK is never going to be majority Muslim. It's not that Islam is a threat to UK in a similar way, but also in a different way. So if UK is slowly losing its values and its standards, it's not going to be in the way that they took over Iran. With like a revolution that people came into the streets and take over the government. That's not going to happen, right? The UK has the support of world powers. The UK is always going to be majority non-Muslim. So we have to make sure that we're not exaggerating. The way Islam is a threat to the UK is that it has a very active minority that is using their presence. It's a minority, but it's also a huge minority. It's a big enough minority to be able to change the politics, change the values, change the direction that the UK is going. And even if UK doesn't fall to Islam, what's going to happen is going to it dramatically reduce the rate at which UK can progress, because it has lower than ideal standards that is being introduced by not just Islam, by the way, but also by the far left. So again, I'm trying to make sure that I keep things. Oh, thank you so much for the super chat. HD is saying Muslims make up 6.5% of UK. Yeah, when I say 10%, because I've seen the predictions of the next 50 years. So it's probably going to get to 10% at some point. Muslims make up 6.5% of UK population. That's 3.9 million in 2021, up from 4.9, yes, which was 2.7 million in 2011. Yeah, and I think it's going to get to 10%. And imagine how bad things are getting with just 6.5%. And then 10% is going to be a lot worse. So guys, what do we do about that? These people, first of all, I completely agree. Immigration from Islamic countries should be lowered to a zero, except few exceptions. For example, of Christians in Islamic countries. Like, I'm talking about very small number of exceptions that is not going to change the demographic, like people who have left Islam, who are being hunted down, Christians who are being abused, LGBT being abused. These are very, very small numbers. It doesn't make it even to the thousands. I think other than for very, very rare cases, immigration from Islamic countries should be completely stopped. There are plenty of other countries that don't have Islamic, that are not Islamic, that you could use if you need any kind of immigration. Okay. So that's to begin with. But again, that's not going to solve the problem. And I also believe that you should deport every single person that has these backwards beliefs, that are coming from Islamic countries that are not yet fully citizen. That's number two. But when it comes to number three, you already have a huge population, a base population in the UK that are Muslim, that are not just Muslim, but are Muslims with backward beliefs, but they're properly Muslim, like they have Islamic views. And they are UK citizens, and they are going to have way more children than the rest of the population. And there's nothing you could do about it if your solution is to get rid of these people. So you have to find other ways. You cannot just simplify the problem by saying deport, deport, deport. Okay, this fight is complicated. This fight is complicated. It's not going to, when it comes to the people who haven't yet migrated here or not fully citizen, maybe you have a solution for them. But for others, that is not going to work. And here in this channel, we will introduce you to the ways that to fight, other ways to fight against Islam. Because this is not going to be, so there is a military battle, there's a border security and immigration battle, but there's a third battle that it's your job. It's your job and my job, and that is an ideological battle. And that's what we teach you. We have to get into an ideological battle here. There's no other way to fight this other than an ideological battle. All right, so let me just, I have to end the stream very soon. Let me just address the comments that Alfred highlighted. Ruby saying Muslims are people and people have different interpretations of the same idea, but the idea itself is toxic. It can and did create terrorists. That's why it needs to be, what is this? I don't know what that word is. Okay, here's the thing. Terrorism is not the main problem. Imagine if you have 46% of the population supporting a terrorist group, even if they're not terrorists, the rest of them are supporting values that makes your country go backwards. It hurts your country. So terrorism is what gets the most amount of coverage because it's violent and it's newsworthy. But the values that many Muslims support that is going to stop your country from growing and prospering are a lot of less interesting, less newsworthy, boring values that is going to change the standards at which your country operates. And that is going to actually be more harmful than acts of terror. I know the violence and the terrorism is a lot more attention grabbing, but the way the Islamic virus destroys a country is more boring, less newsworthy, and that's why it gets less coverage. And that's why people who want to act like we're exaggerating have the upper hand, because a lot of you guys just focus on the terrorism. I mean, I wasn't talking to you, Ruby, but other people, right? And then the people who want to defend Islam are like, okay, well, look, this many of them are not terrorists. This many of them are not supporting terrorism. So you're wrong. You have to actually understand the Enlightenment values that your country is based upon and why Islam is against that. I will do my next stream maybe on that one, right? And why it's actually the threat of Islam to your country goes beyond violence and terrorism. But I do agree. It's well, I don't actually. Okay, so when you say different Muslims have different interpretation, yes, that's correct. Okay, but however, Islam is just one Islam, and as you pointed, Islam is toxic. Islam is toxic to the core, and even if different Muslims have different interpretation, and because Islam itself is fundamentally barbaric and backwards and insane, the interpretations of Islam by Muslims who are more in line with liberal values are the incorrect ones. And because the correct version are the insane, backward, violent ones, and they're always hooked and rooted into the actual Islamic scripture and the Quranic scripture and the Hadith, the liberal interpretations will always just act as cover for the actual true teachings of Islam. So it cannot veer off too far away from this barbaric teaching. It will always come back. So maybe if you attack Islam enough, some Muslims will become liberal or moderate, but that will just act as a defense mechanism of the meme that is Islam. Because once it has the upper hand again, it will always revert back to its original teaching. And again, this is not like a conspiracy that Muslims are in on and are doing this intelligently. This is how just the survival, this is just Darwinian survival of the strongest meme. When you attack Islam very aggressively, many Muslims will be under the influence of that attack. They will adopt more moderate or more liberal interpretations of Islam. But again, once they have the upper hand, because the scripture actually doesn't teach that, it will always go back, revert back to that fundamental teaching of Islam. It just organically works like that without anyone planning it like that way. Somebody saying, I don't understand this point. At what point does a Muslim stop being a threat? I mean, in the West, where being a Sunni Muslim is completely optional? No, okay, so Muslims are the patient. So Islam is the problem. So Islam is like cancer. Muslims are like the cancer patient. We're fighting cancer. We're not fighting the cancer patient. And different Muslims have different degrees of being influenced by the disease that is Islam, by the cancer that is Islam. Right? Some Muslims are influenced like 5%, some 10%, some 90%. So it hasn't rotted the brain of every Muslim completely. There's different degrees of influence of Islam, right? So that's why you cannot treat every Muslim as if they're the same. I mean, Islam is all evil and all toxic, don't get me wrong. But again, not all Muslims have been, many Muslims, so we have, I have different categorization for Muslims. I could like do a stream on it if you want. There are minimalist Muslims, there are nominal Muslims, minimalist Muslims, right? And then we have reformist Muslims, conservative Muslims, and then conservative Muslims, yes. And then we have ex-Muslims, right? And I could show you why the minimalist Muslims and nominal Muslims, unlike the reformist Muslims, are used for by many to show that Islam is peaceful, but they're minimalist and nominal. So nominal Muslims are people who are just Muslim by name, and they don't act or behave or think at all in a way that is Islamic. They just have the Muslim label. Minimalist Muslims are people who don't think much about Islam, but they do the bare minimum to be Islamic. Like they pray, they fast, but during their day, they don't really think much about Islam. So these are the nominal Muslims, and minimalist Muslims might by some people, be misleading. They might give them the idea that Islam is not that bad. But the fact that you are less of an issue when you take Islam less seriously shows how bad Islam is. Because if a Muslim is not a threat, it's because that Muslim is not taking Islam very seriously, which shows most of the time, unless they're a reformist Muslim, which they are a very fringe group, which shows how bad Islam is for you to be less of a problem because you're taking Islam less seriously. And we got a super chat. And then after this, I'm going to go. HD is saying, I am for your solution to this problem, but there are also Christian nationalists here in the US who are calling themselves Christian Taliban. What shall we do to oppose that? I mean, we're calling them, what do we to oppose that? You just oppose them. You just, okay, so here's the, we promote liberal values, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. We just stand our ground. We support liberal values by teaching people what liberal values are and why they make countries great. Why all countries that have become great is because Enlightenment, liberal, secular values, right? From United States, Canada, UK, Germany, France, Japan, Taiwan, South Korea. Why these countries that adopted these standards all of a sudden become so great and so prosperous, right? And also we fight back against ideas that are challenging these liberal values, right? And but the problem is that, again, I agree that Christian nationalists are, I mean, I don't think Christian nationalist is a good term because it's okay to be a nationalist. I am for civic nationalism, but I think I know what you're talking about. You're talking about people with some crazy, insane views. But as much as of a problem they are, I have decided to focus more on the main threats to liberalism these days, right? And we are going to cover like some other threats to liberalism when it comes from, whether it comes from Judaism, whether it comes from Christianity, whether it comes from Hinduism. But the main threats globally to liberalism these days as Islam, wokeism, and Marxism. Again, I'm not dismissing the threat of, other threats, other threats that comes from some Christians or some Hindus or some Jewish people or some other illiberal values, right? Racists, homophobes, fascists, all of them are a threat. But the main priority right now globally should be Islam, wokeism, and Marxists. Well, Marxists, not so much as before, but mostly wokeism and Islam. Anyways, that is the end of this stream. Guys, don't forget to support this channel. Don't forget to leave a like. Don't forget to leave a comment. After the show is over, leave a comment. I do read as many as comments. See, I'm always honest with you. I don't read all the comments, but I read many of them, okay? I might lie to you and I read all your comments, okay? But that would be a lie. I try to be honest here on this channel, okay? When you leave a comment, I try to read as many of them, so please leave a comment. Even if you don't want to say anything in support or criticism, just leave a comment because your comments boost the algorithm and the channel will grow. Leave a comment and also subscribe to us if you're new here. Hit the bell notification if you're new here so that when we go live, it tells you that we are live. If you hit the subscribe, it's not good enough. You actually have to hit the bell notification so that YouTube tells you that we are live. And also, most importantly, if you could do this, this would be very helpful to the channel. Please go tell people to subscribe to Atheist Republic on YouTube, because I really think that here we have found a good, we're not fear mongering too much, and we're not like dismissing the threat. I think we have found a very good, ideal, honest, objective, as much as possible, objective position when it comes to supporting liberal values and fighting back against Islam, right? So please, if you think there's any value in that, and we actually show you evidence, we show you data, we show you examples, we show you the teachings of Islam. We're doing this very effectively, so please go tell people to come and subscribe to Atheist Republic on YouTube. Tell your friends and your enemies to come here and subscribe to us. Anyways, I'm going to go get ready for my Persian show. For people who don't know, I also have a Persian channel. This channel is the English channel at Atheist Republic. The Persian version of this channel is called Jamhuriya Bi Khudayan, which is mostly for an Iranian audience. And I have a show there now, so I'm going to go get ready for that. Anyways, bye. Till next stream.